Hello, welcome back to the ministry, and today I'm going to talk about our light. There is a light that we carry, but throughout our life, throughout time, throughout our experiences, there are elements of false evidence that has appeared real, that has attempted to get us to dim the light that we naturally carry around us. See, the thing about it is when you don't recognize that you carry light because you live in your light, you exist in your light, it is part of who you are. What your light really is your kindness, your sweetness, your heart, your jovial spirit, your what have you. A lot of people don't carry that. Deal with people on a regular basis. You recognize that a lot of people don't have a genuineness within their heart. Some of them, they do what is necessary to make it appear that they carry a level of genuineness of heart, but in all truth of who they are, it's not there. They will make appearances, but when you authentically are loving, caring, giving of yourself, giving almost to a point that you overgive, overshare, over, because you don't ever want anyone to feel a certain kind of way. Most people aren't that kind of way, but you have a lot of people that are takers. They make themselves appear a certain kind of way. They make themselves this way. They make themselves that way because they need to. And then they will become jealous and envious and then forcibly create a perceived viewpoint over you because they don't want to accept that you are anything more than who they could be, because they need to pull you down to match who they are. That's what I was saying in one of the other words that I said. When a person doesn't have money, they will pull people that do have money down to a level of where they are so that they can feel comfortable. So if you have a good heart posture, good all of this kind of stuff, they will slander you and say all these kinds of things against your name because they need to pull you back down to who they are. Yes? So I was in the presence of the Lord the other day, and he showed me something about wattage. Now, I've heard people talk about candles. I've heard people talk about this. But let's just use it as an example. If I walk into a room and my wattage on my lamp of my light is 2,400 watts, but the room I walked in was being led by a leader whose wattage was 1,000 watts. Now, you take a 40-watt light bulb that's receiving from 1,000 watts, they think, man, that 1,000 watts is bright. It was only bright until the 2,400 watts walked in the room. That's when you got to see the dullness of that light. You got to see the grayness in that light. You got to see, hold up, this person that walked in that has 2,400 watts, their light is bright, it's golden, it's clear, it's this. But the person that was already in here, now I see flaws in their light. I see cloudiness in their light. I see scratches in their light. I see that their light looks dull and dim. People that either are false, that don't have the proper acuity to what God's will and God's light are, they're going to immediately be shown for the fullness of their scratches and all that kind of stuff when somebody of a purer light walks in the room. And it's not because you walking in saying, I'm pureless of light, I have all of the answers, I'm pure. You might have been coming into the room to receive from the 1,000 watts because you were like, I like what you have to say. Because I'm humble enough that I will sit in the room and I will receive from you and hear what you have to say. But the person that's 1,000 watts is like, you are overshadowing me because your light is too bright for this room. So then, you know what happens? People will then start to, what? Kick dirt on you. Heard a pastor one time say it this way. You ever notice how people will start to kick dirt on you? He told a parable of a billy goat. A billy goat. He kept kicking. People kept putting dirt, so on and so forth, at this billy goat. But the billy goat was taking the dirt that was being kicked at him. And the billy goat was in this hole. And they kept putting dirt in the hole. And the billy goat kept packing the dirt down and standing on top of it. A lot of us be in seasons where God's trying to plant us, where God's trying to create root systems in us, where God is making us that bamboo tree. I need you to hear what I'm saying. And I'll be honest with you. Before I called this ministry Love, Faith, Peace, and Blessings, and Love, Faith, Peace, and Blessings was something that I've been saying for 10 years. I can link you to a video where I was saying it the first time I ever said it. I was on Facebook 10 years ago. And I have been signing my emails like that for years. So this isn't something that just came to my brain. I actually wasn't going to name this ministry this. I was going to name it, I think it was Amplified or something like that. It was a specific word that meant bamboo tree. Because a bamboo tree, it has the ability for 4 years. It digs its roots down into the ground where nobody can see it. But in that 5th year, it shoots up so high that can't nobody stop it. Some of us, we that billy goat that was a bunch of dirt was being kicked on top of us, kicked on top of us, kicked on top of us. God had us in isolated season. Sunray recently did a word a few weeks back on her channel where she talked about, are you a Joseph? And she talked about the 3 P's, the pit, the palace, and the Potiphar house. And she was talking about the fact that these are the seasons that you were underground with your roots. And your roots was digging in deep into the ground. But what people see is in the year that you're supposed to be shooting up, 2024 is our year. They're going to see you exceed and expand. Joseph, we coming up. We coming out of our isolation. We coming out. I'm coming out. I want the world to know. We coming out of our dark places and our dark spaces. We coming out of those places that we were held bound and held captive in. But the amount of perseverance, the amount of training, the amount of preparations for our marriages, for our businesses, for the things that we to put our hands to. All of these things, we have been cultivating this in a quiet space. Some people think they just seeing me now on YouTube talking about ministry. But I have been on social media for over 10 years. I have been walking with God for 11 years. I have been cultivating messages with the Lord for since 2016. I just came to the understanding of the more purity of God throughout that time frame. When you first come into God, yeah, you may be deceived by certain ideologies and thought process. Everybody goes through that season because you're new. You're a new babe. You're new in Christ. But when you come out of that, you come into the clarity of what God is trying to show you and teach you and you walking through. And in him giving you that wisdom, you separate the dirt from what's real. And it's a constant factor. And I'm going to tell you why it's constant. Because the enemy's always going to try to bring something in to test. Remember the serpent in the garden? He must bring something to make you question. And he always does it just before elevation point. Know who you are, know who God is, so that you have the wisdom and the understanding. So when God shows you something, you're like, okay, I know who God is, and I have the fullness of understanding of who God is, so that I'm not being deceived in these times and in these seasons. Because the enemy's running double time, because he don't want y'all to run into your God ordained marriages, your God ordained missions. And the clearer that you are on the mission, the mandate, and what it is that you're supposed to do, the enemy gonna come in there and he gonna want to bring in confusion. I'm not for everybody. Everybody's not for me. And I'm okay with that. But I've been cultivating this ground in multiple ways and areas. God brought me to YouTube almost a year and a half ago because of the fact that it was his desire for me to do that. I was on Facebook saying a lot of this stuff. I was on it was Facebook. I was writing a bunch of posts about this stuff. Tumblr. All of this type of stuff. Cultivated in some of my darkest seasons. He had me writing this stuff out. Then he started pulling me from over there and he said, now I want you to start making videos on it. I said, okay. He brought me into kingdom marriage stuff because he wanted me to talk about my journey in that as I prepared. But I've been walking with God in a lot of these cases for years. I'm not new to this. I may not be an ordained minister, but I know how God has spoken to me and gotten me through seasons, and now I'm helping you. But the enemy wants to come in, that when you come in and your wattage is 2,400 watts, because you done been through hell back, high water, and all of that, Isaiah 61. I'm going to richly reward you for all you've gone through. Those that have duller lights, because they ain't been through all you've been through, they going to look at you and say, your light's too bright. You overshadowing me. I need you to leave. And it's not the fact that, it's not the fact you out there trying to overshadow people. You just don't recognize how bright your light is. But the enemy does. That's why he always trying to throw dirt on you. Ever notice how often the enemy try to throw dirt on you? That's because you too bright and you making him look bad. So he's got to throw dirt on you. Have you ever seen a light bulb that's been covered in crud? And you can't even get the crud off because the grease, the oil, the filament, all of this kind of stuff. It has now dulled the light that could come from that light bulb because all this stuff has been thrown onto it. And that's what the enemy wants, because you can't overshadow the person that's 1,000 watts. Now I had to bring you down to a level that, now you dirty enough. Catch that. You're now dirty enough that the 1,000 watts now looks like it's about the same light wattage as you. in order to bring you down 1400 watts. You see how that is? But I don't listen to them no more. Lisa Nichols used to always say, if you come into a room and they can't stand your light, tell them to put on sunglasses. Because when you come into the fullness of the identity of who you are, don't shield your light. I even remember I was listening to Mary J. Blige in her documentary, and she was talking about the fact that how she had to dull herself down to be in the relationship that she was in. A lot of us do that because we want to be normal or perceived normal. You're doing too much. You're this, that, and the other. And some of us, it's not that we're doing too much. It's just who we are. I am who I am. I'm not going to change who I am because it's going to make you feel better. If who I am makes you feel uncomfortable, okay. Recognize your wattage and act accordingly. I got another word, so I'm going to be right back in the next one.